I'm Dan Whittaker, aka DFW1500 from Golfworks, and this here is Annette Stroud. Annette is a qualified biomechanist and she is also a TPI Level 3 fitness instructor.
Hi.
Between the two of us today we're going to talk to you about turning deep in the golf swing, which was one of the topics from last week in terms of turning into the right side as opposed to turning over the right side, and the problems associated with this turning in terms of it from a fitness perspective. First of all, we're just going to cover an angle where people may have had looks of many of my videos in terms of a setup problem that I have had. It allows me to get my setup spot on for me, but it's something that people may have seen have looked a bit strange. So I'll just slide myself into the setup position here.
The reason why we decided to mention this today was because I looked at a couple of Dan's videos and thought that his position looked somewhat exaggerated for all of you viewers out there. Now, we thought it was important to explain this because obviously it may confuse some of you in terms of Dan's teaching philosophy. The reason why he sets up like this is because he has his right leg longer than his left side, almost by about 2.5 centimetres. So in order to get into the position that he's teaching you, he has to drop his right knee inward that way to be able to do that in the first place.
What we're going to do is over the coming weeks we're going to do some tests on myself and come up with some fitness and training exercises in order for me to be able to overcome the problem I've been having. We don't know whether it's a problem that I was born with or something that I developed either through athletics or through other areas of my life over the years. So we're going to have a look at that. I'm going to chart the progress and keep you, the viewers, informed of how we...
So what we're going to do is we're going to screen Dan next week and we're going to show you why or how his leg length is different. And as Dan said there, we don't know if he's born with it or if it's a result of his functional movements. If it's functional movements, then it's something that some of the biomechanics exercises will address and improve, which will ultimately enable him to get into better or more normal looking position, should we say, in his golf position. So if, however, by doing some of the exercises, Dan doesn't see a response, then we can safely assume that he was actually born with that, since nobody's told him whether it was genetic or not.
The area that we're going to look at today is going to be around the hips and into the glutes, which they're a very key area in terms of being able to turn deep in the backswing. So first of all, I'm going to just take myself to the top of the swing here and just remind all you guys about the turning deep. So from a slightly side-on view here, you will see that the hips have turned very deep. In other words, I've loaded the weight into my right glute and my weight's transferred into the inside of my right heel. So my weight has gone backwards this way. So my tailbone has turned towards the target. I've created lots of space here in the backswing for my arms to be able to come down in the transition, but I've got some stretch also in my groin area. Now Annette's just going to come in now and just...
So one of the things, if Dan holds this position, obviously there are a number of factors that may determine whether or not you can physically get into this position. Today we thought we'd just discuss this hip. Clearly, in order to get into this position, this thigh bone or femur needs to be able to rotate in this hip socket. This is what we call internal rotation. So if this hip isn't particularly mobile and doesn't move well in that one direction, for example, because there are 3 planes of movement, forward and back, side to side and rotational, then it's going to inhibit Dan's chances of getting into this position. So for all you viewers, if you're unsure whether or not, obviously this is one of the factors, we thought we'd just demonstrate one exercise today that may help just improve that internal hip rotation. So at home you could use a step or a low box if you have one. Step onto the step with your right foot with the toes turned slightly inward. The back foot stays facing forward, and we're going to go into a slight lunge position. So if you take a slightly larger step back down, okay, and then we're going to lunge forward with the right leg, ensuring that the right knee tracks over the second toes, second and third toes of the foot. So we want to follow that correct alignment. And as we push forward, we're going to rotate our upper body round to the right. This motion is increasing the rotation in this right hip. It's also activating the glutes as we do it. So as you come back out of it down slightly, staying in that sort of semi-lunge position, and then we're going to reach forward again and push forward all the time, making sure that knee tracks over your second and third toe. So Dan's going to do about 8 or 9 of these, and let me know and you know whether or not he's feeling anything anywhere. Now it's important to ensure your back foot stays facing forward, because you may well find that your toes start to creep outwards, in which case it'll end up pointing in the same direction as the foot on the step.
See, I can feel a little stretch right here in my groin, but also massively in the outer part of my glute here. Really feels like it's loading a lot whilst I'm doing this exercise.
Good. So ideally at home, you'd look to do this sort of, maybe 10 to 12 times, perhaps 3 sets, as part of an additional program, and then have a swing of the club again as well, and just see whether or not, or get into that position, see whether or not that hip feels like it's able to rotate any better in the position that Dan's looking for.
See, I feel like I've got a bit more movement here in the hip. It's not pulling quite as much into my glute. But Annette will, I'm sure, clarify this now, that there's some creases here in around the right pocket of my trousers.
Yeah. As
I turn deep, that these creases are
going to increase. Yeah.
Okay.
The more creases, the more you can get creases in here, the more the angle of your femur, thigh bone, and your hip is narrowing. So the more rotation you're getting into that hip socket.
So we see at the dress here, the trousers are completely smooth.
With no rotation, sorry.
Okay, and
as you start to turn, the creases increase along that diagonal of his trouser pocket.
So hopefully you'll get something out of these videos that we're going to do. This is the first in our series of bringing together the TPI and the rotational centred type golf swing that I prefer. And
also some of the biomechanics.
Absolutely.
TPI doesn't cover.
We hope that you've enjoyed our first video. If you have any questions, forward them on to me, and I will always forward them on to Annette. You can get me at danwhittaker@btconnect.com, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Okay, see ya.